A few weeks ago, Congressman Ron Paul was live on this radio program, and I asked him if he was going to run for president in 2012, and he said, well, it's a little early right now to talk about that. We're fighting the greenhouse gas emissions, global tax. We're fighting this new Bank of the World. We're fighting government takeover of health care. And I made the point that myself and many others challenged him, drafted him in 2007, 2008 to run for president, and that this giant grassroots organization was formed, and that the idea of liberty and freedom and of auditing the private Federal Reserve and abolishing the Federal Reserve is now growing to the point where the momentum has shifted. They may defeat it this year or even next year, but the public is now identifying the private Federal Reserve banking cartel as the source of our economic problems, the source of the derivatives, and as the globalists who really run our government, and that the left and right, the Republican and Democratic parties, are fully controlled. Look how far we came. And when I challenged Ron Paul to run for president, I made the point that he had the responsibility to run, even if he didn't have a very big chance of winning, because he would inject real issues like dollar devaluation and globalization and NAFTA and GATT and New World Order and federal power grabs, that he would inject that into the Republican debates for hundreds of millions of Americans to watch. That indeed did result in a total turnaround in the American people's awareness to the private Federal Reserve. 3 years ago, I would go on other talk radio shows, liberal, conservative, you name it, and the callers would call in saying the Federal Reserve isn't private, the Federal Reserve isn't a problem. Now in Gallup polls, over 75% of Americans know it's private, want to audit it, want to abolish it. It is now common knowledge that we have a shadow government run by offshore banks and that they engineered the crisis in October of last year to force a huge power grab, and $50 trillion they've stolen from national governments in the last year since then. $23.7 trillion according to congressional reports from the U.S. alone. Saying that, I know Ron Paul, I know Rand Paul, I know his mindset. I've been listening and reading to his statements and his ideas for more than 15 years. I've been interviewing him for more than 13 years. And I was able to predict 6 months ago that Rand Paul was going to run for the U.S. Senate. And he was hesitating, and I made the point to him on and off air, and they did listen to it. And I'm very honored that go ahead and announce you're going to run, and that will make the Republican, who isn't one-tenth as good as you are, Rand, that will make the incumbent not run again. And they announced, and he said that he wasn't going to run, and Rand Paul right now in the polls has a very good chance of becoming a U.S. Senator. And I knew he was going to run because I understand that the polls realize that it's a victory. If they run for Senate, if they run for president, they will be all over mainstream media. They will be in the debates. And then all these real issues that matter, instead of all these left-right diversions, will be put on the table. The globalists and think tanks have reported that they know the majority now on colleges aren't liberal or mainline conservative. They are now libertarian. They are now anti-globalist. That is because not just Ron Paul, but you, the listeners of this radio show, and others have gone out and educated people and built a huge activist base that is exploding. If Ron Paul announces early, and I have total confidence, I'll just leave it at that he's going to run for president in 2012, unless he has any medical problems. And he's in good shape, and he's a man who understands duty and destiny, and it's a win-win. Even if he loses, it's going to be 5-10 times bigger than last time. Frankly, I can't see him losing other than election fraud in the primaries, which we've proven there's a big problem with. And so he's going to run. Now, I wasn't told this by Ron Paul, but I can read the tea leaves as much as the next person, and I've interviewed Ron Paul more than 100 times. I can tell you he is going to run, but you should email him, write him, ask him to run, and ask him to run early. He should announce in January or February or even sooner of next year. I think he should announce now. Point out that he was right. He should brag on himself more and point out everything he talked about a year and a half, 2 years ago in the campaign, the plunging dollar, the world government, the global carbon tax. that it's all come true. We need Ron Paul to run for president in 2012, and we do not need him because he is somebody who finishes his jobs. And he's somebody who's very moral, and his argument will be he needs to full-time be in Congress fighting the bad legislation. He can do that better if he announces for president now, or in the next few months. He can start getting more money now. He can start building a larger grassroots strategy. The enemy will try to shoot him down early. That will give people mudslinging fatigue, where they don't listen to the rehashed lies and propaganda in the last year of the campaign. He needs to launch early next year and have 2+ years to really build into the campaign a grassroots organization of true populism and true constitutionalism that dwarfs anything we've seen. So I'm asking Ron Paul, I know you're going to run, Ron. You are the blood of courage. And at 74 years of age, you work every day. You do more than 10 interviews every day. You write books. You write weekly articles and editorials and record legislative alerts. You are the hardest working man in Congress. Close to 30 years ago, you introduced the legislation to audit and abolish the Fed. You now have a 2/3 majority in the House. You are the leader. You are the elder statesman. You are the man for the job. You are founding father material. And I, Alex Jones, and my tens of millions of listeners and visitors of Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com hereby draft you for 2012 to be our champion. Now, the campaign will heat up a year and a half before. So we are only a year away from the main campaign season. Congressman, announce in the next 6 months. You must announce in the next 6 months. Now, I'm done talking to Congressman Ron Paul now in his campaign. I now want to reach out to Ron Paul supporters and everyone who loves liberty and freedom on the good ship of this republic. You will have a higher platform, a larger platform to speak out, Congressman, if you announce soon. You know that. But to the listeners, COINTELPRO is going to attack and say, oh, look, we gave him $30 million, $25 million, and he lost. But he gained and built a platform. Wars aren't won in a day. They're won by attrition. You have to persevere like George Washington and continue to fight. That is the key to victory. Resistance is victory. We have the truth. He will be front and center as the global carbon tax unfolds, as the global government unfolds, as the plunging in the dollar unfolds, as the police state unfolds. He will be there. And he knows he gets a lot of death threats, I know, and doesn't talk about it, just like Lou Dobbs doesn't a lot, except when his house gets shot at. He knows that he's going to be under massive attack, and we need to pray for him. But understand, we need to give money to Ron Paul for president. We need to support him. We need to grassroots hit the ground now with this draft to draft him. And we need to support him 110%. Whether he wins or loses, he wins in the arena of ideas. So I just pray that our Heavenly Father move Ron Paul to announce earlier rather than later. I move that, I ask God to move people's hearts and minds to do everything they can and to use their intellects to think of inventive ways to support Ron Paul, and that we understand that it is so essential he run for president and he run early, and that everyone get behind him, and that everyone realize that there are paid government trolls and blogs that are going to lie about him. The establishment knows that left attacks bounce off Ron Paul. Fake right-wing attacks bounce off Ron Paul. They're going to attack him from the fake libertarian base. They're going to run strong libertarian candidates up against him. The Libertarian Party at the top is definitely compromised. I will state that here on the record. The evidence is overwhelming. And that we need to not respond to the attacks and only intensify our support for him. Because the establishment wants you to stop and defend Ron Paul instead of waking up new people to supporting Ron Paul. And we should run more people for the House and Senate on the Ron Paul bandwagon. This is history. We can save our faltering and stumbling republic from falling if you commit 110% to support Ron Paul for president 2012. The ball is in your court. The world government is coming in against humanity right now. The tyranny is unfolding. Everything Ron Paul and myself and many others talked about has now been admitted in spades. There's no more denial, no more time to screw around, no more time to ninny. The world government's real. Ron Paul is our elder statesman. He is our leader. He is our chief. He is our commander. He has proven it. He has shown the fruits of his labor as being 100% pure and good. We must pray for him. We must monetarily support him. But more importantly, we must hit the streets and get the word out for Ron Paul now for President 2012. The campaign's already on. Start supporting him now. Ron Paul, 2012. It's going to happen. Visualize it. We're going to save the republic.